Whispers spread like wildfire through the interstellar channels, bouncing from one relay station to another until they reached every corner of known space. The humans had refused the summons. Not ignored it. Not postponed it. Refused it outright, with a single, deliberate word. No. In the vaulted chambers of the Galactic Council, where no species had dared to defy in centuries, that answer rang louder than any battle cry. The Council had been formed long before humanity ever discovered faster-than-light travel, a coalition of civilizations bound by treaties, laws, and an unshakable belief in their authority. Entire empires had bent under its will. Worlds had been sanctioned into famine, fleets dismantled without a shot fired, leaders toppled with a single vote. And now, here was a species scarcely a century into interstellar space, answering the Council's highest order with a word so final it bordered on insult. Representatives from hundreds of star systems filled the vast amphitheater. Towering insectoids clacked their mandibles in irritation, scaled reptilian diplomats hissed in disbelief, more than one aquatic envoy gurgled in their private tanks, translating astonishment into alien tones. The Speaker of the Council, a venerable being whose species had outlived star cycles, raised its translucent appendages for calm, but the tension in the chamber was already thick. "This cannot stand," growled the delegate from the Kreth Dominion, a warlike race whose fleets had conquered systems for sport. "No world refuses the Council and survives the outcome." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. "They are primitive," sneered an Elorian minister, her silver skin catching the chamber's light. "A short-lived species barely clawing out of their gravity well a century ago. They do not understand the consequences of defiance." "They understand," came a rare measured voice from the back, a veteran strategist from the Vorth Alliance, a race known for their military caution. "They just don't care." His words hung in the air like a warning, but the chamber dismissed it with a wave of collective arrogance. The official record of the humans' answer was displayed in the chamber, a direct, secure transmission from the United Terran Directorate. The message was as unadorned as it was unyielding, addressed to the Council, acknowledged their summons, and declined without apology. No legal argument, no diplomatic dressing, no suggestion of compromise. It was a statement of choice, not negotiation. The Council's inner circle gathered after the public session, their conversation sharper, stripped of political theater. They discussed recent human activities, economic expansion into fringe sectors, refusal to sign certain interstellar trade agreements, increased encryption in their communications. Intelligence reports indicated no obvious military buildup. But the analysts had no answer for the silence, no public statements, no leaked debates, no visible preparations. For the Council, it was incomprehensible. Threatened worlds always scrambled to comply or to beg for leniency. Humanity had done neither. "We shall send the formal demand," declared the speaker finally, its voice resonating through every secure channel to the member worlds. "Under Article 14, they are required to appear before this body and submit to Council authority. If they do not, sanctions will begin immediately, followed by enforcement measures." The diplomatic communiqué was drafted with the precision of a blade, courteous in form, ruthless in substance. It outlined the accusations: territorial disputes in a resource-rich neutral zone, refusal to recognize Council rulings on trade routes, and the alleged destruction of an unmarked survey ship belonging to a Council member species. The message concluded with a deadline for compliance, and a veiled reminder of the Council's power to ensure it. Hours later, the Council's transmission logs recorded the reply. A single human envoy, speaking in a voice as calm as if ordering coffee, simply said, "No." No elaboration. No justification. Just that one word, delivered without hesitation, and the connection terminated before the Council's translator drones could request clarification. It was not the kind of refusal the Council had encountered before. There was no bluster, no attempt to posture as equals, no emotional outburst to be exploited. The humans' tone had been settled. As if their decision was already carved into the fabric of reality, immune to persuasion or threat. The chamber erupted the next cycle. Some called for immediate military intervention, confident that a swift display of force would break human resistance. Others argued for restraint, suspecting that an overt assault on a young, defiant species might inspire rebellion among other fringe worlds. The speaker called for order again, but even the most disciplined delegates could not mask their unease. The Council's strength had always rested on compliance born from fear. Humanity's refusal carried no trace of fear at all. For the first time in centuries, the Council faced a species not just willing, but apparently prepared, to walk away from the entire galactic order. And though no one admitted it aloud, a sliver of doubt began to work its way into the minds of even the most confident delegates. Because in the history of the galaxy, prey never said no to predators. And if the humans were not prey, the question no one dared voice in that chamber was, what, exactly, were they? The message from Earth spread through the galactic networks faster than any official bulletin could control. Markets reacted within hours. Trade convoys rerouted from human sectors. Insurers refused to cover shipments bound for Terran space. And several minor colonies quietly suspended commerce with Earth to avoid being caught in the crossfire of whatever was coming. News channels across countless systems replayed the same snippet again and again, a human voice, calm and unyielding, speaking a single word of rejection. For some, it was entertainment, a young species playing at defiance, about to be taught a humiliating lesson. Others viewed it as a dangerous precedent, especially those on the fringes of the Council's influence who had long chafed under its authority. In hidden channels, rebels and separatists hailed the humans as an example, though most doubted Earth would survive long enough for their defiance to matter. Inside the Council's intelligence bureaus, analysts pored over every scrap of information available. They tracked fleet positions, trade volumes, diplomatic exchanges, and even civilian chatter from human colonies. None of it followed the expected patterns. There were no large-scale troop movements, no visible military convoys, no public calls for unity. If the humans were preparing for war, they were doing it in complete silence, and that alone unsettled the more seasoned strategists. In a private chamber far from the public debates, the Council's Military Advisory Board convened. Admiral Zether of the Dravik Armada leaned forward, mandibles clacking in frustration. "They are doing nothing," he insisted. "That is either the posture of the defeated or the snare of a hunter. I do not like which way my instincts point." His warning drew only derision from a few of the younger officers, who saw the humans as an unsophisticated people too new to space to understand the scale of power aligned against them. Historical precedent offered no comfort. No world had ever defied a formal summons and escaped without concessions or collapse. The usual sequence was simple: demand, refusal, sanctions, and if necessary, enforcement. The machinery of the Council was efficient at grinding down resistance, whether through economic suffocation or overwhelming military force. That machinery was already moving. Trade restrictions had been authorized in record time, and embargo protocols for human goods were queued for implementation. Yet there was a growing unease, not because of what the humans did, but because of what they didn't do. Surveillance drones posted on the edges of Terran space reported minimal movement, but deep space listening arrays picked up encrypted bursts of data, dense, precise, and utterly undecipherable. The frequency was irregular, skipping across spectrums, using patterns no known species employed. It was as if the humans were speaking a language deliberately crafted to exclude outsiders. Some members of the Council saw this as proof of incompetence, poor coordination in the face of crisis. Others recognized it for what it might be: an organized system beyond the Council's ability to penetrate. In a rare moment of candor, an elder from the Quorum Collective whispered to a colleague, "They are not silent. They are speaking where we cannot hear." Amid the arguments, the political factions sharpened their lines. The Hawks demanded immediate deployment of a strike fleet to bring Earth into compliance before its defiance spread contagion to other systems. The moderates urged caution, warning that visible aggression might expose the Council to accusations of tyranny. The merchants simply wanted stability restored, whatever the cost. When the first round of sanctions failed to provoke a reaction, the Council authorized a second approach. This time the message was not a polite invitation to negotiate, but a direct ultimatum: appear before the Council within a fixed time frame or face full enforcement measures, including military action. The terms were deliberately harsh, designed to corner the humans into compliance. The communiqué was sent with all the weight of the Council's authority behind it, encrypted through the highest security channels, and delivered by a special envoy known for breaking stubborn governments. The reply came sooner than expected. It was not a formal letter, not a face-to-face meeting, not even a holographic call. Instead, the Council received a transmission from an anonymous Terran source, heavily encrypted, containing only two things: a set of precise coordinates in deep space, and a single line of text, *, we will not come to you. You will come to us, *. The chamber fell into uneasy silence as the words were read aloud. It was not a plea. It was not even an invitation. It was a directive, issued as though the Council were the subordinate and Earth the authority. The arrogance, some said, was staggering. The audacity, others whispered, was dangerous. And beneath all the outrage, in the minds of a few who had seen empires rise and fall, there lingered a more troubling thought, that perhaps the humans had just set the terms of the conflict, and the Council had already stepped into a game it did not yet understand. The Council's decision to accept the coordinates was not made lightly. Debate raged for 2 cycles before the vote tipped towards sending a high-level diplomatic fleet. Pride played its part. If they ignored the humans' message, it might be interpreted as hesitation. If they responded with force without an attempt at contact, some member states might see it as overreach. And so, under the banner of diplomacy but with warships at the ready, the Council moved. The journey to Sol was marked by a confidence that bordered on mockery. Senior delegates speculated openly about what kind of display the humans might stage. Perhaps a hastily assembled defense fleet. Perhaps a desperate show of strength before inevitable surrender. The consensus was that this meeting would end with humanity brought into line, one way or another. Upon arrival in the system, the fleet's sensors swept for signs of activity. The expected wall of human warships never appeared. Civilian traffic moved as if unaware or unconcerned about the Council's presence. Orbital stations transmitted standard navigation data, offering no sign of alarm. There were no hails, no warnings, no ceremonial welcomes. It was as though the Council's arrival was of no particular consequence to the inhabitants of Earth. The coordinates led them to a vast installation in geosynchronous orbit, a structure whose design was neither ostentatious nor crude. Its exterior was clean, functional, and devoid of insignia, giving no clue to its purpose beyond the docking bays that silently opened to receive the delegation. Inside, the corridors were immaculate and unsettlingly quiet. Automated systems guided the aliens deeper into the facility without a single visible escort, as if their hosts knew they would follow without protest. At the end of the passage, the delegates entered a chamber large enough to hold them all comfortably but absent of any grandeur that might signify intimidation. One human stood waiting. No guards flanked him, no aides hovered nearby. His posture was relaxed, his expression unreadable, and his eyes moved over the delegation without haste or apparent interest. The lead counselor spoke first, reciting the terms of the ultimatum with the practiced cadence of authority. He emphasized the gravity of the situation, the legal consequences of continued refusal, and the inevitability of enforcement if compliance was not achieved. It was the same formula that had bent countless worlds to the Council's will. The human listened without interruption, his gaze steady. When the speech ended, he responded in a voice that was neither loud nor hurried. "We don't recognize the authority you claim over us. We will not comply with your demands." The bluntness drew immediate protest from several delegates. One accused him of recklessness, another of ignorance, a third of seeking needless conflict. The human let the noise die down before speaking again. "You assume we are here to avoid the consequences you threaten. We are not. We are here to tell you what comes next." That choice of words struck the delegation like a cold wind. They were accustomed to negotiation, to the ritual dance of offer and counteroffer. What they heard instead was a statement of finality, as if the human was not merely rejecting their demands but declaring the matter already settled. Before any could respond, a low chime echoed through the chamber, an alert from the delegation's personal devices. Each counselor's data feed showed incoming reports from their respective fleets. The transmissions were terse, their tone urgent. Unidentified signals had been detected across multiple systems within Council territory, originating from positions deep inside their own borders. The human's voice cut through the rising confusion. You came to deliver terms. We will give you ours. What you are detecting is the beginning of a message to every world that believes it can dictate our place in this galaxy. The delegates exchanged uneasy glances. This was not the defiance of the weak, nor the bravado of the desperate. It was the composure of someone holding an advantage they did not need to explain. The silence that followed was not one of mutual respect, but of a dawning realization that the Council was not the only party capable of shaping the outcome of this confrontation. No further arguments were made. The meeting ended without agreement, but not without consequence. As the delegation prepared to depart, the humans' parting words followed them into the corridors. The next move is yours, but the end is already ours. The reports flooding into the Council's fleet command were fragmented at first. Minor communication outages, unexplained power fluctuations, sensor arrays going dark in distant sectors. Within minutes, those anomalies escalated into full-scale alerts from worlds spread across the Council's vast territory. Orbital defenses were losing contact with their control systems. Military outposts were reporting that automated targeting protocols had been overwritten, and encrypted databanks were broadcasting in clear text before abruptly shutting down. In the chamber, the human spoke as if reading from a prepared statement, though his eyes never left the faces of the delegates. You believed we were waiting here to hear your terms. We were not. While you debated how to bring us to heel, we were already inside your walls. The choice of words was deliberate, and the alien delegates understood the implication. This was not an infiltration at their borders. This was deep penetration into their most secure holdings. The displays in the Council's control interfaces began to shift. Live feeds appeared without command prompts, showing unmistakable images of human warships in orbit above key planets, worlds so far from Sol that their presence should have been impossible. The vessels were not firing, not advancing, simply holding position with a patience that made the scene more unnerving. The Elorian minister's voice cracked as she demanded to know how the humans had bypassed the Council's early warning network. The human did not answer directly. Every fortress has doors. You simply forgot to look for the ones you didn't build. The pattern of the incursion revealed itself in chilling clarity. Every location now under human observation was a critical node in the Council's military or economic structure: shipyards, trade hubs, communications relays. None were destroyed, yet every one of them was effectively cut off from the rest of the network. It was a demonstration of precision, not brute force. Consider this a lesson in scale, the human continued. You believed our fleets to be slow, our reach limited. What you see now are not the only deployments we have made. The suggestion that more unseen forces were already in position sent a ripple of unease through even the most hawkish delegates. From the outer sectors came new transmissions. Council patrols had intercepted fragments of human communication embedded within standard data traffic, disguised so completely they had been circulating for weeks without detection. Specialists quickly realized these messages had been signals to sleeper fleets. Small, heavily armed units that had already slipped past every checkpoint by hiding inside neutral or unmonitored systems. The realization hit hard. This was not an improvised retaliation. It was a campaign planned long before the summons was ever sent. Every step the Council had taken, the demands, the ultimatums, even the decision to travel to Sol, had unfolded within the timeline the humans had prepared for them. You think of this as brinkmanship, the human said evenly. It is not. War is not declared when one side already holds the field. His words were reinforced by fresh reports. Automated Council shipyards and 3 core systems had gone completely offline, their production queues erased, their control programs rewritten. The only remaining message in their systems was a single line of text in Terran Standard: stand down. No threats were shouted, no conditions offered. The humans were showing capability, not making promises. The restraint was as calculated as the action itself. By leaving infrastructure intact but unusable, They demonstrated the power to destroy without committing to it, forcing the Council to consider the cost of escalation without granting them the rallying point of an open attack. Every passing moment deepened the imbalance. Delegates who had arrived with the confidence of conquerors now exchanged quiet, terse words, their earlier bravado stripped away. The idea of overwhelming the humans through direct force was no longer a matter of willingness. It was a question of whether their fleets would even respond to such orders if the humans decided otherwise. The human broke the silence one last time. Leave our systems. Cease your claims. Forget the notion that your rule extends to us. Do this, and your worlds will see nothing more of our presence. Refuse, and you will not see us coming the next time. There was no rise in tone, no threat laced with anger. It was a statement delivered with the same cold certainty as their initial refusal, a certainty that now had the weight of visible, undeniable power behind it. And as the Council's private channels filled with desperate contingency plans, it became clear to all present that the balance of control had shifted entirely. The chamber was silent except for the faint hum of equipment relaying a dozen live feeds from across Council space. On every screen, human fleets held position like patient predators, their formations precise, their movements minimal. The absence of aggression was almost worse than an outright assault. It left no clear line to retaliate against, no justification for escalation that would not be seen as desperation. Delegates who had arrived in the Sol system convinced of their supremacy now avoided meeting each other's eyes. The weight of realization pressed on them all. The humans had bypassed every defense, infiltrated the heart of their infrastructure, and done so without a single public declaration of intent. It was not a show of force. It was a demonstration of control. The Speaker of the Council, who had remained silent through the unfolding crisis, finally addressed the human representative. You have made your position clear. What is it you seek in exchange for withdrawing your presence from our worlds? The human did not hesitate. We do not negotiate under threat, and we do not accept the premise of your authority. Our withdrawal is not conditional. It will happen when you remove all claims over our systems, rescind your rulings against our actions, and recognize that we do not answer to this Council. The words cut deeper than any ultimatum the Council had ever faced. They were not framed as a bargain or a demand, but as a non-negotiable truth. The Council was accustomed to compliance won through fear. The humans, however, showed no fear, only a certainty that the Council's options were already exhausted. In the fleet command channels, the reality was undeniable. Attempts to trace the human ships had failed. Efforts to reassert control over seas systems had been met with cascading system errors, as though the very code of their infrastructure now answered to a different master. Every plan to retaliate was countered by the risk that the humans could disable something even more critical before any attack reached them. A few delegates made a final attempt at defiance, suggesting that the Council could absorb the loss of a few systems to reassert dominance later. Their arguments faltered when the humans shifted the central display to a feed no one had expected, the Council's own homeworld. Orbiting it were human vessels in perfect formation, their presence an unspoken statement that the heart of the Council was as vulnerable as any distant colony. This was never about victory in battle, the human said evenly. It was about ending the notion that you can compel us. You will leave us alone, not because you respect us, but because you understand the alternative. The speaker's voice, once the embodiment of unshakable authority, carried a tremor as they asked, "And if we agree? Then you will wake tomorrow to find no trace of us in your skies," the human replied. "Your systems will return to your control. Your fleets will be whole again. And you will remember that we could have chosen otherwise." No vote was taken in public. The decision emerged from a rapid, hushed exchange among the senior delegates, each calculating the survival of their worlds against the cost of swallowing their pride. The formal withdrawal of all demands against Earth was issued within the hour, recorded in the Council's archives with the sterile language of diplomacy that hid the truth. They had been forced to bend. The human gave a single nod, no sign of triumph in his expression, only a final statement before the connection was severed. "If your Council summons us again, it will be the last summons you issue to anyone." True to their word, The human fleets began disappearing from Council space within the day. They did not linger to gloat or extract concessions beyond what they had already claimed. They left behind no debris, no trace of conflict, only the memory of a power that had reached into the heart of the galaxy, and then vanished without a fight. In the days that followed, rumors spread faster than official denials could suppress them. Some called it a masterstroke of strategy, others a warning written in silence. In private, leaders who had once mocked humanity now treated even the mention of Earth with caution. Publicly, the Council maintained its image of stability, but the truth had already settled in every mind. A new variable existed in the balance of power, one that did not bow, did not bargain, and did not forget. And so the galaxy adjusted, not because humanity asked it to, but because it had no choice. Fear had replaced arrogance, and in the corridors of the Council itself, one thought lingered unspoken but understood: never again would they mistake humanity for something they could summon and control.